Welcome back to Unlocking Change, the bookcast. This is Chapter 2, How to Implement the Integral Map for Organisation. My name is Robinson Rowe and thank you for joining us. In Chapter 1, we introduced the Integral Map for Organisations, all quadrants, all levels. And we started in the lower left quadrant where we find culture, the way we do things around here. From there, we went to the top left quadrant where we looked at how people develop through their lifetimes under the umbrella term vertical development. We can see that from their behaviour in the top right quadrant, the decisions they make, what they say, the actions they take. And that led us to the bottom right quadrant where we find how organisations are structured. And what we realised was to unlock change, we actually need to change how we structure our organisations today. Now, when we think of organisational structures, we often use the rowing team analogy. Here we are, all rowing together, heading in the same direction, looking out to achieve our mission to get across the finish line first. But as we discussed in Chapter 1, when we are placed in structures of functional silos, we end up looking like this. We're actually talking together in our own teams. We're not actually rowing together. At one end of the boat, we've got a cox representing the shareholders. Give me greater returns, they say. At the other end, we've got a cox representing the customer. I need more value. What do? We put in place processes, systems, forms, more processes to try and get everyone to work together. And if we actually achieve that, our boat is actually very rigid. It's fragile. It's not very agile out there. So when we launch it into the real world, we find it doesn't cope very well. This real world of volatility, of uncertainty, of complexity, of ambiguity. What we need is a raft that looks like this. As Nassim Nicholas Taleb would say, we need to be anti-fragile. Now, when we look at our raft in this water, we actually can already feel the mission that we have. We galvanize around the mission, safely make it down the river. Our team of paddlers are all working together. They independently can make decisions, but it's all to get themselves down the river safely. The front right paddler suddenly shouts out, "Log in the water!" The left-hand paddlers slow down, the right-hand paddlers dig in as they shift across. The log flows past. Up ahead, there's a big boulder in the river. The water on the left-hand side looks smoother. They start heading that way. The team leader, from her experience, shouts out, "Go right." Immediately they start changing course because they trust her experience and they start heading around the right-hand side of the boulder. Contrast that now with our functional silos. We have sales engineering, we have delivery, we have support. While we're in this situation, nothing really changes. The team's going to work together. The problem comes when we start to put the hierarchy in place. Who do these people report to? Suddenly they're reporting to 4 managers spread across the back of the raft. Instead of a goal of making it safely down the river, each manager is saying, we need to deliver on our KPIs. Now, sales calls out, "Log in the water." Delivery manager responds, "Are you sure?" Engineering pipes up. Sales probably crying. Bang! They hit the log, tip over the boat, and they're all in the water. They hold a post-incident review. I know what we need. We need stronger, faster communication channels. Let's implement Slack, Teams, something like that. So now we have more processes on top of all the other processes. Well, our rowing versus rafting is a great analogy, but it's still simple. And it's actually not just one raft, it's multiple rafts. So how do we turn this into a total organisation? So again, looking at the business books and looking at the academic research, what we can see on our integral map for organisations, in the bottom left we have Frederick Laloux with Reinventing Organisations. And he has some great case studies around self-managing teams and how they operate. Up the top left is Elliot Jacques and his stratum theory. This is his vertical development, but how it actually aligns to the layers of an organisation. From there, we can look at the work by Stafford Beer, Viable Systems Model, where he has devised, using cybernetics, the 5 systems we need to be able to be viable in our organisation. The diagram here is by Patrick Hooverstadt, who modernised this in his book, The Fractal Organisation. And this was actually used to run Chile in the 1970s, to run all the nationalised companies for the entire country. And Eden Medina researched this in her book, Cybernetic Revolutionaries. And this shows us the recursive structure that we need to build into our organisation, from the worker to the crew, all the way up to the firm, to the nation, as we build out our structures. Finally, bottom right, Matthew Skelton and Manuel Pei have built in their book Team Topologies the different building blocks that we need and their relationships to build this out. So once again, we have the jigsaw pieces, but how do we put it all together? And this is what we find is missing in all of the business books, all of the academic research. They tell us why we should do things, what we should do, but not how to build it all out. So we believe for the first time, that's what we're going to do here. Now, to do that, we're going to use a specific industry, because that allows us to get into the details. And the devil is in the details. So let's get into it. But if it doesn't quite relate to your industry, we're going to pull out of this some principles, and we'd like you to use those principles in your specific situation. If you still are having trouble, please feel free to reach out to us and we can discuss how this would apply. Now, we're going to use a startup, and we're going to grow our startup, because that shows how we can think as we grow and develop. So, we have our founder of our startup, and she's been looking at all this talk and research and noise out there about artificial intelligence. And she thinks it's a great opportunity, because there's wonderful benefits that we can realize through artificial intelligence. The problem is there's a lot of dangers as well. So her great idea for her startup is to build an AI governance platform to safely accelerate the benefits. Now, this is not new, right? There's many companies out there doing this already. But her idea is to use cybernetics. This is the Stafford Beer work, because in cybernetics, they understand how to manage complexity. All right, so we have our founder. She gets some seed funding. She brings in some like-minded people, and away they go to build their minimal viable product. They get on board some lighthouse customers. They grow the team a bit further. Now they're able to get their Series A capital raising, and suddenly they have a team of 64 people. Our founder looks up and suddenly she's got 64 direct reports. It's time to put in some structure. But the question is, how do we structure this? So before we get into that, let's pause. And I'd like you to think about how you would structure this. Now, we've put in the roles of all these people here. And we're going to give you just 15 seconds to think about this. And then we'll come back to you about how would you structure this. Let's play some thinking music. So how did you go? Look, if you want more time, just press pause. We'll still be here when you come back. Okay. Well, the obvious way to organise our 64 people is to put them in their roles. So were you thinking of a structure like this? This is the obvious way for us to organise the people, put them all in their roles. And then we might think about agile teams. So we add in our raft, a patrol, a squad, a crew, reporting to a team lead. But who does the team lead report to? Who do the people in the raft report to? Suddenly we have people reporting one way and then into functional silos the other. This is how the matrix structure came about in the 1990s. And from personal experience, a matrix structure means you go from hierarchical to confused hierarchical. So, our startup is now actually taken the wrong road. We've turned right when we should have turned left. Because as we build out our organisation, as we hire more people, we add in management layers, often with managers at the wrong vertical development level, and our functional walls start to solidify. We can now use our organisational structure here to further expand and explain some of the challenges in Chapter 1. The first one is our mission statement. Remember how it's actually really hard to cascade our mission statement into nested mission statements down our organisation. Our objectives and key results as we go down. They quickly turn into KPIs, sales targets, utilisation rates, age tickets, average call handling times, debtor days. Another area often overlooked is, what does this do to our cognitive load? What does this do to what we need to think about and do? Well, there are three types of cognitive load. The first is our intrinsic cognitive load. This is what we use to do our daily tasks, to do all the things we need to do on a daily basis that actually become second nature to us. We want to simplify and standardize these as much as possible so we're not using up our cognitive capacity on just doing daily tasks. Now, this gets a tick and a cross because most organizations do this. However, they simplify and standardize to be able to dumb down the work and hire lower skilled workers at lower pay. We actually want to remove this cognitive load to give us time for the next sort of cognitive load, that is germane cognitive load. That is thinking about how to improve things, thinking about how to do things better. We want to think about the here and now, how to fix our daily tasks, how to make them better, but we also want to think about the there and then. What should we be doing into the future? What new tools or what new software or what new processes should we be putting in place? Now, in your organization, how much time do you get to do that? Is most of your day occupied either doing your daily tasks or attending meetings, and the only time you really get to do that sort of stuff is on the weekend? That's if you're not already doing some of the daily work because you're stuck in meetings all day long. It could be because the third type of cognitive load, extraneous cognitive load, is getting in your way. In our organisation like this, we're not really working that well across the functional silos. So what we find is we start implementing spreadsheets and forms and other documents and processes that we need to fill in just to get our work done. Does your organisation look like this? Imagine if you banned Excel. Would your organisation still be able to operate? Extraneous workload gets a big red cross. Remember in Chapter 1 we talked about the prisoner's dilemma. Well, we have our directly responsible individual here, and they're probably being tasked and held accountable to fix up one of these cross-functional processes. And they come up with a great idea, but they need to get on board two other departments. And if they don't agree, they need to escalate up to their managers. If their managers don't agree, they need to escalate up to their managers. Can you imagine how many meetings are going on right now? And if they don't agree, they need to go to the CEO, because the CEO is the only person with the authority, the empowerment to make this decision. Now, going to the CEO is actually a CLA, a career limiting action, because they should be able to make these decisions. So in the end, they compromise, probably not the best solution for the organisation, but one they can all live with, and they pass that back down to our directly responsible individual who is not happy. This is not the best outcome, but they don't have the empowerment to make that happen, but they're still held accountable to get it done. This means they have no ownership, because ownership requires empowerment times accountability. Without either of those, there's no ownership. We've headed down the wrong road. So as promised, we're actually now going to come back, turn left, and we're going to show you how the organisation should be structured to move forward, to unlock change, and to become that flexible, agile organisation we've talked about. To do that, we actually have to start again. Now, this next section, when we go through this, is going to demand a lot of your germane cognitive load. So please, go grab a coffee or a cup of tea, and we'll see you back here shortly.